Hello again, this is Earl Guffey with some more memories and ideas, and not ideas of mine, but things that I've heard and preached along the way, and I want to try to help somebody as we go along through this time of trouble. We got to the place where we are not able to go to church and be with each other, and we need to comfort one another and love one another. Jesus told his disciples, he didn't say when you feel like or when you get ready. He said, this is a commandment that you love one another as I have loved you. And he gave his life for us. I want to start this session with a story about Brother Grupp Scott, the death of Brother Grupp Scott. And the reason I want to talk about it is I was there in the room when he died. I was only about 8 or 9 years old, and it made a very deep impression on me because I along with Brother J.B. Pritchett, happened to be standing directly behind where Brother Grupp was sitting. And the service started, and Brother Grupp got up during the testimony meeting, and the Lord blessed him so much, and I mean, he really got a good blessing. When he was finished with him, he came back and sat down in the chair in front of us again. And I mean, he was close enough that I could have put my hands on the man, Brother Grupp's shoulders. And he sat there maybe 5 minutes, and Brother Will was in charge of the service. He got up behind him and was talking, and all of a sudden, Brother Grupp just went out on the floor face down. Brother Will said, well, I've seen him pass out under the power before, maybe you'll be okay. But this time, the Lord came for Brother Grip. And as I heard Michael Jim say, what a way to go. I believe that the death angel took him right on. I'll say a little bit more about the place where we was having meeting. Well, first of all, let me just go back and say about Brother Grip. He was the first, I believe, in his family to receive the Holy Ghost, as far I'm talking about his family. And now, several generations later, his descendants are still serving the Lord, and I'm so thankful for it. And I'm thankful for him. I'll get back now on what I was going to say about the place where we was having church. Back in those days, you didn't have grass growing up to the front to your sidewalk and a sidewalk leading inside, into the door. Our yard at that time was dirt, and they kept every grass and everything out of it, I guess, because of snakes and so forth. I don't remember what all. But anyway, when it would rain, you could imagine what it was like tracking across that yard through that mud. And after services was over, I'm telling this because the sisters back then it seemed like a lot harder maybe than we've got it today. But after the church service was over, we'd take the makeshift benches out and start to clean up. And if it had rained, and a lot of times it did, Mother would start cleaning in the back of that room and going towards the door. And most of the time, before she got anywhere near the door, there was so much dirt that some of us had to go get a scoop and scoop it up and throw it out in the yard. Well, this was we didn't have carpet. We didn't have hardwood. We had, as I remember, pine, tongue, and groove floors, and it was hard to take care of. But that's just some of the things that the sisters had to put up with and do. I'll go now to a story that Brother Oakley Drake, before he died, told me about what his father, Brother Mitchell, had told him about running revivals over in Big Cove. Of course, that's where Brother Oakley and Brother Mitchell were, and still got a wonderful church over there. But Brother Mitchell told Brother Oakley, he said, sometimes after laying by time, and laying by time might be a new word for some of you, because most people back in that time that went to church and belonged to the church was farmers, and they didn't have the equipment that you got today. And when they got their crops up to a certain place to where they could turn them loose and then not grow up from then to gathering time, they called it laying by. And that gave them a chance then to have revivals and do a few things before they went to gathering the crops. Well, Brother Oakley said, Brother Mitchell told him that sometime after laying by time, he would get a phone call from over in Huntsville, and my grandpa, Brother Will, would be over there, and he'd say, Brother Mitchell, I'm at so-and-so's house or the bus station. I want you to come get me. We're fixing to start a 2-week revival. Well, that was news to everybody with Brother Will and the Lord, I guess, but so I don't know how the sisters managed and uh, got by and so forth, but Brother Mitchell said he was obedient. He'd go get him, and they'd start having meeting. And he said most of the time, invariably, there's 15 or 20 received the Holy Ghost during that time. And being obedient is a wonderful thing if we can do that. Another part of that story was one service, one protracted meeting they was in. Brother Mitchell and Brother Will was sitting on the front porch at Brother Mitchell's house, and I guess after dinner, maybe, I don't know, but they were sitting out on the front porch, and this woman or girl come walking down the road, and as she passed, Brother Will asked Brother Mitchell, "Who is that person?" And he told him, somebody that was a neighbor and lived there, I guess, pretty close. And Brother Will said, "She's going to get the Holy Ghost during this revival." Well, Brother Mitchell knew the family, and, he said, "Brother Will, they don't even come to church." I don't know whether he told him they didn't believe in holiness or what, but it just, Brother Mitchell couldn't understand that he said that. But sure enough, she got the Holy Ghost during the service. And that's one of those things that God shows people, and we would. I would like to be in that place, but I'm not there all the time. I'll go now to just a story about Brother Frank, my dad. As I said about before about the houses and so forth and the yards, we grew up poor, poor in natural things, but spiritually we was really blessed. But Brother Frank was a sawmiller, and if we got to go to town or church or any place else, it was in a lumber truck or a log truck. We didn't have a car. And so this Sunday, the Lord spoke to my dad and told him to go to Gunner's Mountain, which is, he was living at Skyline at the time. It's, I guess, 35, 40 miles over there. And it caught my dad with no transportation. None of his vehicles was roadworthy enough to go to Gunner's Mountain. So, and on top of that, he didn't have any money. So he was in I guess I'd call a bind there, because he felt like the Lord wanted him to go, and he didn't have a way to go. And I've often thought, well, I guess if that happened to me, I would probably just sit down somewhere and say, "Lord, if you want me to go, you can furnish me a way." But he didn't do that. He got out and started walking to try to borrow a car to go to Gunner's Mountain. And he found one someplace. I don't remember if it's who let him have it or if it was some of the family or what. But they let him borrow the car. Well, he come back by the house, picked up my mother and my grandma Gamble. She is out there. And they took off to Gunner's Mountain. Well, before they got to the church house, a little bit before, somebody looked at the gas gauge, and it was on empty. Well, here he is out there 35, 40 miles from home in a borrowed car with no money and depending on the Lord. And the Lord took care of him. I'm going to go ahead and tell you the rest of it. He went on and did what God sent him to do, I'm sure. I wasn't there. But after his talk, maybe, or during his talk, somebody put some money in his pocket. And I know who did it and I know how much, but I won't tell it because I want him to get a reward after this life's over. So anyway, he put some money in his pocket, and my dad didn't tell Mother and Ma about it. But after church, they started back to Skyline. That was before lunchrooms. So they got over, and I guess he could coast down the mountain. I don't know if he ran out of gas or if he was just barely had enough to get there. But anyway, down across 35, it was at that time, it's 79 now, there was a little Jiffy Mart, I guess you'd call it now, with a gas pump. And my dad pulled up to the gas pump, and Mother said, "Frank, I don't know why you're stopping here. You don't have any money." But God had provided, and He will provide if we'll put our dependence in Him and do His will as we go along. Jesus was talking in the 17th chapter of Luke, I believe it's the 3rd verse. He said, if your brother trespasses against you, rebuke him. If he repents, forgive him. Now they used a little bit of different language, I guess, back then than what we do now, but if I would put that in my words nowadays, I might say, if your brother hurts your feelings, tell him about it. And if he says, I didn't mean nothing by it, I'm sorry, then you forgive him. It's important that that's done quickly, very quickly. God gave me a parable to go along with that, and I'm going to relate it to you. He put me out in the middle of a grass field, a big, huge grass field. It was hot and dry, and the wind was blowing, and it was almost like danger to be out there, but I was out there in the middle of it, and he said, strike a match and drop it down at your feet. And I thought, Lord, this place will go up if I do that, but I was obedient. I struck the match and dropped it down at my feet. And he said, all right, now put it out. Well, it wasn't no problem because that just happened. And I was able to step on the fire and put it out with my feet. And he said, that's what it's like if you have trouble and you fix it right away. But he said, on the other hand, if you had dropped that match and started walking out of this field and not fixed it and not put it out, he said you'd look back and the whole place would be afire, and you'd have to call the fire department and everything else to get the place back put out. So it's necessary to tell somebody if they hurt your feelings and get it out and get it fixed right away, because if you go home and pout or whatever you want to call it, tell your wife or kids how bad so-and-so treated you, you're going to start a big fire. So get it fixed fast. This pandemic we got going now has kept us apart, out of service, and been a hard thing on a lot of people. And I don't know, it's come to me what a perfect time it would be for all the children of God to not look at anybody else, just examine your own self and see where you stand with the Lord. And if you is any place you can to move up and get closer to Him, because this thing will be over here one of these days, and we'll all get to go back to church. And if we can all work that way and do that, it'll be so much better when we do all get back together. And it's another thing, it's a good time. If you got a young family, if you're younger children of God and you're raising your family, it's a good time to talk to them. Do it once a week or whatever. If you have to sit them down at the table and turn off the TV and everything else and talk to them. A lot of young people get scared at stuff like this is happening. And it'd be awfully good to let them know that God's still on the throne. He's still in charge. And He'll take care of us if we'll do what He tells us to. And I know that a lot of people nowadays have their smartphones and their young kids and Game Boys and first one thing another, but it wouldn't hurt them to lay them things down and talk about the Lord and ask them questions and talk to them and get them involved. I remember a few years back, my great-grandson Jake was about 6 or 7 years old, and he happened to be at our house, and we had the Bible we had laying on the coffee table had a picture of Jesus on the front of it. And Jake looked at that and he said, "Whose picture is that?" And I said, "Well, that's a picture of Jesus." And then he got interested, and when I started telling him about it, and he wanted to see that we looked at the pictures in the Bible. They had this Bible had some pictures of different things, different scenes. And he really got interested in seeing it. And every time he'd come back to the house, he'd tell me, he called, because of Jesus' picture being on the Bible, he called it the Jesus book. He said, "Let's look at the Jesus book." So they will get involved and they will get interested and they won't forget it. So talk to them and try to get them involved into doing the things that God would have us to do.